I believe when glamour and public heroism are taken out of our giving and acts of kindnesses, it means that our individual consciousness as well as our global consciousness are expanding. So it is time for these qualities to seem ordinary as they arise out of us naturally and spontaneously because of who we truly are. Hi, I'm Sandra Rajpaul, sometimes affectionately called Sandra G, and I want to show you how together we could do that. I am sure many of you would agree with me that given the year we just left behind, which often felt a bit challenging, unfriendly, overwhelming, aggressive, and even harsh at times, that we could all do with some good old fashioned acts of kindness in our lives. Well, if you feel that way, then I cannot wait to share with you some secret ways on how you can receive it. Before I reveal to you how you could receive this kindness, let me ask you two very important questions. And the first one is, what is it you are seeking and hoping to receive from kindness? If you examine this question very closely, you would notice that it is not just about receiving something, which serves its purpose, but it's also about the feeling you get when you receive. Feelings such as you feel valued, you feel joyful, you feel warm inside, and lighted up because somebody did something good for you. They were kind to you. Now, ask yourself the second question. How did you feel in the past when you did an act of kindness for someone else? Notice your answer would more than likely include feeling valued, joyful, warm inside, and lighted up because you made a difference in somebody's life. Notice that it's the same feelings you experienced when you received kindness. So, if you are looking for kindness and cannot find it, then the secret ways to receive it is through giving because the feelings are the same through giving. And in the process, somehow, you could end up receiving much more than you have given. So, how about lighting up your life this year by giving viral acts of kindnesses instead? And I will share with you some good old fashioned ways that you could do this. And the best part of these is that most of them do not require any money. And yet, they're going to be very impactful and they will add exponential value to your life, which I will share later on in the message. Remember, I said earlier that these acts of kindnesses, most of them will not cost you any money and therefore will not entail things such as buying a cup of coffee for a stranger, going online and clicking donate, or writing a check out to a charitable organization. Nor does it entail packing up books and clothes to send off to third world countries. These are no longer considered to be viral acts of kindnesses as they're very common today and very easy to do because once you have these things, it's very easy to give it away. Now, I'm not discounting these. These are very important acts of kindnesses. So if you're doing them, please, I encourage you to continue doing so because they are very much valued and needed by the recipients. The types of kindnesses that I'm talking about and will reveal to you soon, they're actually uncommon because they are old fashioned. And I invite you to join me in bringing them back in style and making them go viral. Because this is how we can raise our own vibration and the vibration of this world. And we live in times when we really need that in our lives and in this world. So you may be asking, where can I find opportunities to give these warm acts of old fashioned kindnesses, given that we're living in times where we're restricted in many ways and living under many limitations? And I would tell you, it's very simple. You don't have to look very far, just where you are every day when you wake up. Start by looking at home. Look within your own family to offer kindness. Extend to your relatives also. You know, sometimes we tend to be kinder to strangers in far off lands than we are to our own family. Once we've covered right at home, within our own family, among relatives, now we extend that to include our friends, our neighbors, the workplace, in stores, on the streets when you're walking and when you're driving. Look within your own city, your own country, and then you can extend globally, especially online, where this is so badly needed for us to be kind and respectful of each other. There's a saying that charity begins at home because charity is love. And this is where love begins, by being kind, considerate, caring, and helpful to each other, right where we are, right at home, wherever we live, wherever we are, that's home, in whatever city that is, in whatever country. So I like to say that if everybody can do this within their own country, we could resolve many problems right here in our own countries. And our world would end up being much better one in which to live in. So bear in mind that whenever you're good and kind to another person, you will light up their life, and in the process, you light up your own. So I'm going to share with you now some old fashioned ways you can execute some kindness in your life. And they're very simple ways, but not necessarily easy. The first one is be respectful and thoughtful in your speech and behaviors. And you can do that right at home, from the moment you wake up in the morning. What this requires of you on a daily basis is that you are going to have to become a little more aware and more attentive. And I encourage that now more than ever, as many families are at home, working and going to school. So notice that whenever you are thoughtful in the way you speak to another person and you're respectful to them, you honor them, what you end up doing is touching a part in them that makes them want to do the same. And the end result is that you're going to create a home environment that is much more pleasant compared to one filled with tension when you're unkind to each other. So, spouses, I encourage you to look at how you interact with one another, how thoughtful your speech is toward one another. And children, be kind to your parents, be kind to your siblings, and you would find that you would create such a loving environment in which to function. You know, and this is for spouses especially, who tend to be mean to one another when they are not pleased with each other. When you bear this in mind, when you get old, in your old age, you wouldn't want to be alone. You would want to know you have the company of your spouse with you. And when you're good to each other, you would make that experience a little more pleasant as you get older. So please bear that in mind. And now I'll share with you a few examples of where I was executed acts of kindnesses. And I'm sharing this with you just to bring out the point of how to be more aware and more attentive in terms of being respectful and thoughtful towards your fellow mankind on a daily basis. And I'm sharing this not to say, oh, look at what I've done, but I'm sharing it so that it will inspire you to become a little more attentive. There was this individual who once told me, she said, Sandra, you are the only one who do not call me names. You call me by my given name, and you treat me good. And I smiled, and I was glad to know she thought that way, and that's the impact I made on her life. And I've noticed that she would always apologize to me whenever she's conversing with me or she asks for something. So one day I asked her, why is it you always apologize to me? And she said, well, because I was raped, and rape victims tend to do that. Now, when she shared that with me, it touched my heart so deeply, because I came to realize that this individual, who I knew nothing much about, was, underwent such a horrific experience in her life and already feels devalued by it and has been called names by others. Could you imagine how much more devalued she feels when they do that? So I was very glad to know that there's some level of goodness in me, that without knowing her past, that I valued her. At least that's the way she felt. But just by the fact I wouldn't call her names, but call her by her given name and treat her kindly. So we need to become a little more alert of ourselves and who is before us every single day. There was another incident where this young lady, very young child, young girl, she is, mentally challenged. She's had many bad experiences in life. So she lives off meds just to keep her mind stable. And many people would shoo her away. But I guess for some reason I was drawn to her and she was drawn to me. So she would come and talk to me. And I remember her, she didn't know how to manage money, and she would buy these tiny little blocks of cheese for $1.25 each. So I realized that she loves cheese. So I bought her a big block of cheese that I got on sale, and she cherished that so much. But it's more than the cheese. One day we were talking, and I was explaining something to her in life. And I guess I was showing her another way to do something and how to be. And she just stood still, and she watched me with such a warm look in her face. And she said, Sandra, nobody has ever told me something like that, have ever taught me anything like that. And I thank you to show me that there is another way. Now, I know that may have lasted just for a few moments, but just the fact that something positive was left as an imprint on this child's consciousness made me feel good about not putting her down, but instead trying to elevate her a little bit. So this is another reminder that we mustn't judge too harshly people who stand before us. And I know sometimes you have to be tough, and sometimes I'm known to be that way, that I can be because you have to draw lines. There are limits with regard to certain people. But that doesn't mean to say you cannot extend kindness in many other ways. Okay? The second one is to be sensitive, as we're on the topic of sensitive. And I'm going to draw one from a grocery experience that I've witnessed, actually. And yes, there might be a couple of grocery experiences because that's the only place we go to these days. So this one, there was this gentleman who just lost his job, and it's a nice, well-paid job given the position he held. And he's there pouring onto the cashier during this pandemic that he lost his job. His nice job that paid him a lot of money. And of course he wasn't pleased, but he's pouring out his sorrows onto this cashier who works for minimum wage and is exposed to the potential of becoming infected by a virus, and she has to work in this minimum wage job in order to feed her family. And you, with your cushion job, just lost it. And sorry, I don't mean cushion job, but high paying job, lost it, and I'm sure is getting some sort of compensation for it. Is pouring out all your troubles and all this stuff onto this minimum wage employee. Bear in mind that this cashier, he or she, has about at least 20 of you to pass through her stall to cash you out, and has a lot of this kind of stuff to listen to. And bear in mind, she is being paid minimum wage. She has her own troubles. She has her employers on her back. She has co-workers to deal with. She has her family to deal with. She has bills to pay, her own issues, her own challenges. So when you go to a cashier, be considerate, be sensitive, and be careful how you're pouring out. So instead of pouring out, and plus she's not a psychologist, okay? She's a cashier, okay? And she has to stand there now and smile through all this and say, oh, no, it's okay, you can talk, because if she doesn't, she could lose her job. So be a little more sensitive when you stand before a cashier. Be nice to her, be kind, be respectful, be thoughtful. And how about pouring out something onto her? Why not do something nice for her, okay? Or him, whoever it may be. The third act of kindness that you can do on a daily basis is to be patient. And I believe this situation that we're now living in with this pandemic, it is actually teaching us how to be patient. Because guess what? Now we're no longer rushing around. We're no longer being impatient in a line. We want to rush somebody else and skip the line. You have no choice. You have to now line up in order to go into a store. So it's no more cutting off anybody, no more rushing around. You have to now take your time and stand there and wait your turn. Guess what? If you do that, when life comes back to any level of normalcy, it will be a wonderful thing, because what will happen is that you will learn to become a little more relaxed within yourself. And in being relaxed, and instead of tense and rushing around and rushing everybody else and getting everybody else on the edge, when you're relaxed within, the impact you're making on another person will help them to become a little more relaxed, and the whole experience will be much more pleasant. What a lovely way to be. When you are on the phone with a CSR agent, also learn to be patient and sensitive with them. Remember, they don't own the company. They're just a customer service representative on behalf of the company, following certain policies and procedures. So when you have to deal with them, don't lose it with them. Don't get mad and upset. Understand that they're only at a certain level. And while they may have a bit of leeway to be flexible with you, guess what? If you're always upset and mad with them on the phone, do you think they're going to use that little leeway they have with you? No, they would get a little more rigid with you. So be a little more pleasant, and guess what? They might actually try to really help you. Okay? The fourth one, I say, which is a much more difficult one for people to do, but it's such an old-fashioned thing to do. And when you do it, you feel good inside because you know you're really helping someone. How about doing something inconvenient for someone? I have a dear friend. He actually, every Sunday morning, he goes and he gets this 95-year-old man who is a Holocaust victim. He came out of the Holocaust. He survived it. And this 95-year-old man loves to go in the store every Sunday morning. So my friend goes and picks him up, drives him to the store, patiently waits for him to get what he needs. And this is not always very convenient for my friend because sometimes him and his wife want to go out, they want to go out of town, but he made this as a commitment to do this for this elderly gentleman. And by doing that, it means it's not always, easy to do, but he does it with all the goodness in his heart because he knows he's helping this elderly person, and he does it with a sense of quiet enjoyment in himself, a loving thing to do. So, how about doing something inconvenient for someone today? The fifth one, be considerate. And how can you be considerate? Well, today everybody, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are working at home. If you're in a warm climate and you have a house, don't play your music too loud and disturb your neighbors who may be working at home, or children who are going to school and are taking their classes online. Be considerate. Be a bit quiet during the day at least. And if you're living in cold climates or wherever, and you live in an apartment or a condo, try and be quiet also. Be considerate as people are working from home, children are taking their classes online. And guess what? Not everybody wants to hear the show you're watching on TV or wants to listen to the music that you listen to. Because I'm sure if they have to get back at you, you might not want to listen to theirs. So be considerate, be kind to your neighbors. Sixth one, how about doing a good deed with not expecting any kind of reward? And just because it's simply a good thing to do, it's the right thing to do, it's the way you were brought up, it's the old-fashioned way. So let me share an example of that with you. I was at a supermarket, and this elderly lady, both of us came out of the store at the same time, and she had bags of groceries, and she asked one of the employees there to help her take the bags to the car because the employee had told her she cannot take the cart to the car with her groceries. Of course, she was elderly and she couldn't carry all those bags, so she asked him if he would be able to help her. Unfortunately, he couldn't leave his station at that time. So I was party to the conversation. So I stepped up and I offered to help her. I took her bags to the car and made sure she placed it safely in the trunk. And then she started digging in her handbag and said, "Let me give you a tip." Of course, I refused outright because it wasn't the way I was brought up. If you help somebody do something good, you do not need a tip for it. Not in a situation like that. Maybe if you are a minimum wage employee in a restaurant, in a bar, in a cafe, wherever, yes, fine. I could understand that because that's to compensate for your minimum wage. But when you're going out of your way, and I wouldn't call that going out of my way, that was just a natural movement in me to want to help this lady. There's no need to accept any reward. And I just told her it was my pleasure. So just do a kind deed just because it's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the way you were brought up. The other way, I'm going to share about 10 ways with you. The seventh one I would share is, how about becoming a bit humble? Come down from your pedestal, especially if you are a very and highly successful person in life. How about helping someone who you are aware may be struggling, needs direction, needs support, needs resources, needs guidance in some way, but doesn't know how to ask for it? Maybe you can provide connections, you can endorse the person, maybe give a shout out online, help lift that person get to another level that they need help with. And I'll share an example with you. I knew of someone who needed to get a legal document in place. He wouldn't ask for the help, plus he wasn't sure if it's something he should do. And given that I have a CPA background as well as some level of business background in terms of the legal requirements, as well as I have a good friend who is an engineer and worked in a patent attorney office, and had that experience as a patent attorney. Together, we came up and drafted up this document for this person I knew. And I reached out to him and told him, have this, use it. We made sure we stayed within the laws of the city and the state, and use it because you need it, and it's an invaluable piece of document to safeguard your property. So this was reaching out and doing something for someone. I didn't have to stay on my pedestal and say, oh, this person, I am aware of them, but you know what, couldn't be bothered. No, I was in a position to do it, and therefore together with a dear friend of mine, and thank you, Alan, for that help, we got together and was able to reach out and help another person. So I'm appealing to people out there. Many people, especially in these times, need some additional help. So please reach out and be humble and reach out and help someone. The 8th one is, how about being kind and just saying, I'm sorry. It's a very humbling thing to do, because you know what? You don't always have to be right. And when you can say humbly that you're sorry, that kind and good deed can touch that person and change their whole behavior towards you and others. 9th one, something that really doesn't cost you anything. How about a nice, pleasant smile on a daily basis when you meet people? It will light you up inside and light up other people too. It's a pleasant way to live. The 10th one is, how about being kind and doing something simple, such as saying please and thank you. It's a sense of appreciation to others when you do that. Just a word of caution when you're being kind. Being kind does not mean to let people take advantage of you or walk over you. That's not kindness. And this may sound a bit harsh, but that is actually stupidity. When you're being kind, always look at time, place, and circumstance, as well as your inner constitution. So what is this exponential value that you can receive from being kind? What do you get in return? Because you have to be more aware, more attentive, extend yourself, be inconvenienced, be humble, all of which require grit. It means what you're doing is building your own character, and you're shaping yourself into a beautiful soul. Your inner world lights up and you feel good inside because you know you're doing a good deed, and that makes life feel brighter for you as you end up leaving a beautiful imprint on another fellow human being, your own mankind. Isn't this just a lovely way to live and be? At this point, I encourage you to read chapter 98 of my book, Insights, A Life Companion. It's available on Amazon. The link is in the description box below. I was one of those blessed people to be the recipient of a wonderful act of kindness, and it's featured in chapter 98 of my book. So remember to pick up a copy. And this type of act of kindness definitely had no glamour to it, no heroism attached to it, but to me it was a very beautiful, loving, selfless act of kindness that I received. It was inconvenient to the giver. Dreams had to be broken, plans were changed, sacrifices made, but I believe in the end some fairly decent souls emerged out of it. And I want to challenge you to read that chapter and come up with similar ways that you can do a loving act of kindness for someone else. I now pay homage to my loving sister Dina. I know you like privacy, and I want to honor that, but I also honor you. Thank you for being such a loving force in my life. And at this point, also, I would now like to challenge you to come up with some wonderful creative ways of doing some viral acts of old fashioned kindnesses and share it in the comments below so that other readers and other people who watch this video can be inspired by your creative ideas. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.